Some really alarming news that I heard this week that shocked me. And I think this will shock you too. I think this will shock you to your very core, especially if you like podcasts and you are a podcaster, especially if you are a podcaster. Because, you know, I'm a podcaster and I'm an independent podcaster. I podcast for fun. I make a little bit of money off it, but it's not my main hustle. And I don't know if it ever will be. Subscribe to the Patreon, patreon.com/Radio Mike. However, I've always thought it's really tough because when you are a podcaster these days, you're not competing with just other podcasters. Well, you are, but not just other podcasters. You're competing with literally every celebrity in the world because inevitably every celebrity makes a podcast, and generally that podcast is just that celebrity getting their other friends who are also celebrities on for interviews and just talking shit for an hour. And because they're a celebrity, they get more listens, they get more money, more ads, and people like me can never really cut through, even though I've been trying really hard for nearly 5 years now. Thanks, guys. But seriously, I might talk about that more in a future episode because that is an irritating thing for me that I struggle with a bit and I get really jealous. But anyway, that's just the inside of my mind. The point is, you know, everyone has a podcast. Meghan Markle, she's got a podcast. Oprah, she's got a podcast. You know, these people can't be satisfied with just one thing. Oprah, TV host. Meghan Markle, famous actor and married to a literal prince. I got to do a podcast as well. Everyone has a podcast, right? And now we're not even just competing with worldwide celebrities. No. If you're a podcaster in today's day and age, you need to act soon because, and we should all be shocked by this, it has come to my attention that fictional children's cartoon character Arthur the Aardvark, we all know him, we all love him. Every day when you're walking down the street, everybody that you meet, and I said, hey, what a one, you know him. Arthur, the cartoon Aardvark, is doing a podcast. Yes, you heard that right. You're no longer just competing with every comedian in the world, Meghan Markle, Oprah, every single person in this entire planet that is doing a podcast. You're now also competing with fictional children's cartoon characters. What's a podcaster got to do to break through, guys? Because I guarantee you Arthur's podcast is going to be much bigger than mine. Here's a little excerpt. The PBS Kids TV show Arthur may have ended, but the Aardvark has more to say. That's why later this month, the beloved cartoon character is launching the Arthur podcast. Real creative name. The show will revisit tales from the former TV series as well as narrate new stories about school, friendships, and family. So he's just repurposing old content. Nothing new here. And here's the part that really annoyed me. The podcast will have an interactive component too. Listeners are encouraged to send voice messages to be aired on the show. Excuse me, Arthur? Excuse me? Because I've been encouraging my listeners to do that for 4 years. And that's what I thought was my podcast's main point of difference. There you go, guys. As a podcaster in 2022, not only are you an independent podcaster here by yourself trying to break through to the mainstream and get any traction you can, you're being pushed back by everyone. By Meghan Markle, by Jason Bateman, by Arthur the Aardvark. And because of this... Oh, sorry, hang on, I'm just getting a phone call. Sorry. Hello? Yeah. What, the podcast... I'm not hosting the podcast anymore. What? It's cheaper to pay a cartoon character to host the podcast than it is to pay a real... What, so he's just... Oh, God. Okay, guys. It's actually come to my attention that because you don't have to pay fictional characters to do podcast, I'm no longer the host of 20th Century Boy.
20th Century Boy! Show your move. Good news, everyone. When you see onions, have
Hello there. I'm Arthur Reed, and this is the Arthur Podcast. I'll be telling you about my friends and my family.
Hey, Arthur!
Ah! DW!
What are you doing?
I'm recording my podcast.
What's it about?
Me and my friends.
Boring.
And I actually just got a text from Will Anderson and Charlie Clausen, who host TOEFOP. Apparently they've been replaced too.
Hello there. I'm Arthur Reed, and this is the Arthur Podcast. I'll be telling you about my friends and my family.
Oh my god, Twitter's blowing up because Hamish and Andy have been replaced as well.
Hello there. I'm Arthur Reed, and this is the Arthur Podcast. I'll be telling you about my friends and my family.
I can't believe this. The New York Times flagship podcast, The Daily, has a brand new host as well.
Hello there. I'm Arthur Reed, and this is the Arthur Podcast.
Okay, this is bullshit. I'm just looking at, hang on, I just got an email. It's a press release. Oh my God, Australia's favourite comedy trio, Auntie Donna, have been replaced by Arthur.
G'day legends and welcome to another rip episode of the Auntie Donna podcast.
You're listening to the Auntie Donna podcast, the greatest fucking podcast in the world. Brother Mike and Zach and sometimes some guests. We hope you enjoy the motherfucking podcast.
Hello there. I'm Arthur Reed, and this is the Arthur Podcast.
Sorry guys, I'm so sorry. I just had to, I just found that so funny that I had to do it that many times, because, oh. Sorry, yeah, I do think it's really annoying that Arthur has a podcast now, just because I guess, like, truthfully speaking, like, I do put a lot of effort into this podcast, and I hope you guys see and feel that, and I know a lot of podcasters do. I'm not putting any other podcasters down, but for me, as a relatively unknown, like, when I started this podcast, nobody knew me. Like, I was literally a no one. I was like 23. I still am a no one. Just some people know who I am and stop me on the street now, which is weird, but it happens. But it just is, I do find it a little bit annoying, and I talk to friends about it all the time. I do find it a little bit annoying that, like, if you are moderately famous in any way, it's like, start a podcast, another revenue stream. And then it's like, where are my opportunities to break through more? Like, this podcast is growing steadily. And again, I ask you guys, as always, share it around, share it with your friends, post it on your story, tweet about it, please. Like, I'd love to see more of that. That's your homework, guys. I'd love to see a little bit more sharing the pod around. Get in touch with me, of course, but share it around with your friends if you think it's funny. I'd love that, because that's how we're going to grow. All these other comedians get picked up by the big podcast, people, and they have publicity teams and sales teams and digital creating teams who cut their clips. Like, for me, I've got Pat, producer Pat. He's amazing, but otherwise, it's literally all me doing, like, I do everything. I write the pod, any sales stuff I do by myself, anything to do with money, running a Patreon, making all the content, editing, cutting clips, it's all me. I don't have any big team around me. I've got the fantastic Pat, but that's, that's basically it. And we'd love to expand, but it's just harder and harder to break through in the podcast industry now. Luckily, we've got you guys who are listening, who are like loyal listeners. And I feel like we have such a dedicated and motivated fan base that some of these big celebrities, or like some of these big podcasts that, have a lot of listeners because the name is big, but I don't know how many of them are dedicated listeners. Whereas we have a lot of dedicated listeners. Again, not to plug it again, but like, if you feel dedicated, give $1 a month on the Patreon as well. I'm just trying to, like, I wasn't supposed to talk about it. Like, I love doing this podcast, guys. That's not why I'm talking about this. I did just think it was funny that now I have to compete with Arthur. And if there's a kid out there that's listening to the Arthur podcast instead of the Mike podcast, fuck you. Fuck you so hard.